Based on the direction that we're kind of like heading into with 2024 and beyond, just on from a conventional medicine standpoint, from a natural health perspective, based on those two things, 2024 and beyond, what do you feel like the future outlook is in either aspect? Just say the next 5 years from what you see.
Our world changes so fast right now,
It
and
does.
there's so many big players, and there's so many, and especially if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, there are so many obvious and visual and discernible, traceable things going on. And there are so many things underneath the surface that we don't recognize because we may not be in that circle. And I think it's really tricky to say where we're going to be. I mean, if you look at 1980s films, we should be in flying cars right now. And
Oh yeah.
we can't even figure out, hey, is plastic coating my vegetables a bad idea? And it's like, yes,
Yeah, we're barely
where's
getting
the
into with
Walmart?
electric cars.
Yes. So it's like in some ways, we have so much potential to be so much further along the track than we are. And when you look at it, you can either get frustrated and be like, what are we doing? Like, why is this? Why are we so backwards? Or you can say, okay, we are where we are, and what is my job to do? And I think that's something that I'm really learning in that process is instead of necessarily worrying about where I think we need to be in 5 years, paying attention to where I'm at right now and where my growth is supposed to be, because we are going to be pulled into the right direction, the right people, the right collaborations for that need 5 years down the road. So if
Mhm.
we'll do the work right now, we'll be ready and we'll have the tools that we need at that point for whatever that looks like. And I think there should
Great
be a
point.
sense of calm associated with that because nothing's accidental. Like we're
Uh-huh.
not just spinning around on this ball of gas and I don't know, who knows what's going to happen. Like the nature is so systematic and so intelligent. Like if it's kind of like swimming in a riptide. If you'll quit fighting it, it's going to take you where it needs to take you, and you're going to be okay through this. And I think that's really difficult to say to a business owner, especially in a health perspective and in health areas, because everything's a fight. And everything is, you are just clawing your way to the next finish line and the next social media check and the next, yeah, oh, I got an award for this. And we get focused on the wrong things. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting to say, I know that everything on Instagram tells you should be doing A, B, C, and D. But if that doesn't resonate for you, that's not what you need to be doing. So as much as, we're quick to say, don't take every bit of health advice off of Instagram, we also need to quit taking every bit of business advice off of Instagram too, and really kind of looking at what's hollowing us out and draining the life force out of us. I came across another a friend of mine and a peer in the field, Tabitha DiMartino. She owns the Profit Chatter group. She had shared the quiet marketing system and the account on Instagram. And it was so refreshing because I'm very introverted and people don't realize that because I can extrovert. And especially
Mhm.
if you get me on a passionate topic, case in point, I'll talk your ear off.
Yeah.
But it's that constant engagement with every single person that walks in front of me is not my style, and it was really draining, and part of what was leading me to a point of burnout when I was trying to do every single thing for every single person regardless of where I felt called and where I felt secure, and this is natural for me and this is where I work well. And you can create an artificial sense of success, and not that, yes, paying your bills is important, nobody likes cat food, but there is more than just financial success. And I think that's something that growing up without a lot was really difficult for me to process. And even full transparency, within the last 24 hours, my husband has had to look at me and say, it's okay if you don't bring in X amount of money. Like that's not your priority needs to be your health and your happiness. And if that
Yes.
means that I pick up a couple of overtime hours, that's what it means. And that's okay. And if he weren't so patient and so willing to repeat that and understand that he's not talking to 40-year-old me, he's talking to 5-year-old me in a lot of those contexts, I don't know that I would understand it because you don't get that message from anywhere else. And especially, God forbid, you put a doctor title on it, everybody's like, well, I'm sure you got 6 votes. And I'm like, I had somebody one time, they saw my skirt and they're like, oh, well, you're a doctor. And I was like, oh, I'm not that kind of doctor, I assure you. This is,
I'm a
you have to,
naturopath doctor, not a conventional
yeah.
doctor. There's a
I
difference.
I said, "That just means that I'm the lowest paid doctor in this town." It's really funny, And it's, I told my former boss, be careful because money is not my primary motivator. And that's probably not something that people in business say or maybe should say, but that's not what makes me happy. So if you are trying to wave a bigger paycheck in front of me and think that'll make me tolerate certain things, you're going to be surprised. It was the same person who said, "You'll be back." And I said, "Be careful, because if you allow me the time and the reason to step across that line into the other field, I won't be back." And it's been 2 years since I retired. So
Mm,
I think there's a lot of opportunity, but it is not all sunshine and roses over here, and that's okay. Like, it's some people are. I'm reading a book. I'm actually listening to it on my audiobook program. I listened to it completely in 2 days, and I restarted it, and I'm almost through it again. And he talks about, the book is called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and I recommended it to all of my entrepreneur friends. And he talks about greatness isn't for the chosen few, it's for the few who choose. And that choice
mm,
is frequently doing the hard work and chopping the wood and carrying the water. It's not always glamorous, but
yeah.
if you, he talks about having artificial intelligence, and that resonated so much because that's so much of what I see is we have people, and I was looking at myself through this lens. I have all the books. I've got the degrees, I've got the titles I wanted, I've got all these things, but there's a difference between reading in a book and actually doing it. So 2 years into having my clinic, I'm a completely different person. I'm a completely different doctor than I was 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. And I think if you're not constantly evolving in that way, and not everybody wants that, and that's okay. And I don't think there are enough people out there saying, if you are at the level, if you have hit this mark that you wanted in your business and you're happy there, it is okay to stay there. You don't have to be on Amazon. You don't have to have the big storefront. You don't have to have all of these things. You've got to figure out what makes you happy, not what social media tells you need to be happy. Like, we've got to quit listening to every single outside influence and really look at what it is for us.
Yeah. I love that. I love how you broke that down tremendously well. And it's like, hey, you were not afraid to cross over to the other side, and you gave people that warning. Hey, once I cross
Hmm.
over to the other side, I'm not coming back, just so
Yeah.
you know. So it's like it's kind of an interesting transition into the next question that I actually have for you. For those who are like, skeptical about wanting to transition into more of the natural side and kind of shy away from the convention side, not too much, but have that perfect balance. What would you tell that person who's listening to the podcast today?
It's not a street game. Like, you can do both. And to be honest, you need to do both. I'm going to use myself as the example. My lifestyle choices, my stress levels, 16 years in the OR before I even got into neurosurgery, all of those things. And to be honest, I've always been a very serious personality. So I was probably stressed out at 2 and just didn't realize it.
Mhm.
Those decisions and those little pieces, in addition to making some poor choices with food, got me to that diabetic state. And then when I realized that I was diabetic and I was actually the one who caught it, I could either say, well, nope, I'm not doing anything conventional medicine and I'm only going to do it this way. And I could have done that. But I had to stop and say, what is the reasonable risk? Let's look at my lifestyle. Let's be real honest about what I'm good at and what I'm not good at right now in my own personal life. Is that a safe decision? And so I opted to go on insulin so that I don't damage my kidneys while I'm fixing what got me here. Because I can't just wake up tomorrow and be like, oh, stress free. That's not
Mhm.
how it works. You can't tell people, well, you just need to stop stressing out so much. Like, that is the one thing I hate telling people. You got to work on your stress levels, because I think immediately they're like, oh, well, I can't quit my job. Well, cat food's going to stress me out. I totally get it. There has to be a better process for how to change those things. And that's not usually just fixed immediately. In natural medicine, we're taught that if it took you 6 years to develop a condition or a disease state or something, like any state of imbalance, it's going to take you 6 months to work out of that. We cannot expect our bodies to just flip a switch and we're healthy. And I think that happens a lot when people get disenchanted with natural medicine. I think there are a handful of reasons why people get disenchanted with this, and that's a whole other topic. But we have to be able to say, okay, I might need this for a little bit, but that's not going to fix the problem. So I'm going to work on responsibility over here and making those changes so I don't have to stay on this for a long time, so that I can start decreasing how much insulin I need because I'm being more intentional about my stress, my sleep, how much water I'm drinking, the foods I'm eating, what I'm saying yes to that is adding stress to my plate, because not everything packaged as, well, she's a good person, so she's doing X, Y, and Z. Being a good person means being good to myself too. It has
Mm,
to start there. So maybe being a good person is saying, no, I don't think that's right for me right now. I wish you all the luck in the world, but that's not the right thing, where that's not where I'm being called right now. And that not being a, I don't want to work with you kind of a thing. It's recognizing my limits, not something else. So I think that's a big part of it. You can have both.
yeah.
I work very closely with a handful of doctors here in this town that, hey, I've got a situation where I've got a kid that, I can help him from a natural medicine side, but because I'm very aware of safety boundaries, I am not willing to risk this child's health for my ego to be like, well, I fixed it. It was all me. And I made a phone call and said, hey, here's what we're finding on testing. Here's what I'm seeing. I need some help on this. I really think he needs an antibiotic. And it saved that child's life. So that's a win. We should be working together. Again, every other country in the world, conventional and natural work together. They are blended and they are the same thing. This is the only place who doesn't do that. So why? Like, let's start doing that and let's
I
start
was just about to
bridging.
say, yeah, I was just about to say,
Absolutely.
Donna, it's like, I mean, I get it. I love I love our doctors. I love our nurses
Mhm.
tremendously well. I mean, my mom is a nurse within
Yeah.
itself. And it's like,
They're not the problem.
yeah, they're not.
And nobody, it's the insurance companies. It's not the doctors.
That's a whole
So many
nother
of them
topic we
want,
could discuss within
yeah,
itself. The insurance
we're
companies,
going
the
to both
back
get
end
banned if
deals,
that's the
the
case.
handshakes. Yep, yep. And it just comes down to just like we got to learn how to take care of ourselves every now and then. I get it. If
Right.
it's like a do or die situation, by all means, doctors,
Mhm.
nurses save my life. But if we could take care
Yep.
of ourselves just a little bit more and take a little bit of pressure off the doctors and nurses because they're busy enough as it is, I think we'll be well off better as far as just an overall balance of, like you alluded to, just having the best of both worlds. But
Yeah, yeah. Well, and
overall,
it's understanding that their job is to keep you alive.
yeah,
Like, I tell people, if you get shot, don't call me. Go to an ER. Let's not play games. They're
exactly.
trying to just keep you
That's my
alive.
point.
They are not trying to necessarily keep you healthy, and it's
Exactly. They're just trying to keep you
unfortunately
alive. That there's a difference
exactly,
between keeping you alive and keeping you healthy. That's a
right.
fine
It
difference between that.
Yep, I have a client that her blood pressure was 220 over 156, and I said, "Here you go. I called the doctor for you. You've got an appointment tomorrow morning." And he immediately put her on medication while I worked from an herbal side to make that medication work better and to start getting it more in control so that she won't need that medication in
Right.
another year or so. And that's a
Exactly.
great conversation for her to have with the doctor that prescribed it, not the naturopath who tells you, I didn't go to pharmacy school. Why would I talk about something I don't know about? And I think this culture and this social media influence thing is you need to be an expert at everything. No, you don't. There's no way. That is so arrogant to think that you can do everything perfectly and you're not God. And we've got to quit making decisions that make us our own God in that. And I think this whole boss babe culture and this entrepreneur thing really puts a lot of pressure on us. And that's why we're seeing such high rates of burnout, especially in holistic health, because there's a lot of reasons why, but that's part of it is because we are accepting this perception that we're supposed to be able to do everything. And
Mm-mm.
that's not true.
No.
That's not, and we have to be able to have our own boundaries and say, no, I don't work on that. No, it's, I could help a little bit here, but that's not really my area. So here's somebody who does do that.
Exactly. And that's what generates more success and more blessings really all the way around, making teamwork be the dream work.
Right.
But actually,
More chairs at the
LaDonna,
table.
we're actually at the point, LaDonna, where I was actually going to ask you like a list of questions that I ask everybody who comes on the podcast. That way we can dive into your world just a little bit more, just a bit.
Yeah.
My first question I actually had for you, LaDonna, is what's the first thing you do or think of every single day that you wake up?
It's going to sound so trite. I go to sleep praying and I wake up praying. That's home base for me. And that's,
There's nothing
you
wrong
have,
with
yeah, and I think we're missing that a lot. Otherwise, my brain will naturally tend toward, oh, this bill's due date. Oh my gosh, I need to check on this. Oh, I'm worried about that. I will naturally fall into a worry pattern, and gratitude crowds out worry. He already knows, like he's going to handle it anyways. Just because I forgot to pray about it doesn't mean he forgot it. So instead of praying about what I'm worried about, I start with that gratitude part, and that changes everything.
It does. You got to be grateful for the big things, the small things, and everything in between. That's
Mhm.
what I like to say on a regular basis, LaDonna, for sure. And we could also be honest on what I'm about to say next, as far as health is wealth, because they're both two sides of the coin. You can't have one without the other. My next question is, in your eyes, LaDonna, what is health and wealth for you?
It's funny because you can look at that so many different ways.
Yep.
Because I do health for a living. But I think, as you get older and as you, maybe that's part of the wisdom that comes with living life a little bit more, you recognize that money comes and goes. I can pick up extra appointments and make a little bit more money. And I can just, if I don't have health, I can't just turn around and be like, okay, well, I'm going to be healthier today. So when we look at wealth as something more enduring and maybe not necessarily financial, we've got to separate out, wealth is not always financial. It can be,
Mhm.
I mean, it's nice, but, and with financial wealth, we can afford different things like health. Unfortunately, like it's really sad to see that in the US, real healthcare is a luxury. I don't think it should be that way, but that's where we're at right now. And you have to
Mhm.
start with where you're at to figure out where you want to go. But I think really understanding that waking up in a healthy body that's capable of doing its job and continuing to your immune system working and your digestive system, all those things, that is wealth. Like being able and capable is wealth. And those are things that aren't influenced by the economy and aren't going to be, well, spent too much of your wealth today and tomorrow you're going to be dead. That's not how it
Yeah.
works. So
When you think of community, LaDonna, what does the sense of community mean to you?
that's a hard question for an introvert and a busy introvert at that. Um, I think really that network, really understanding where you're at and the fact that there are so many different things that influence we have to take into context. We are a physical body, we are a spiritual body, we're all these things, but we are plugged into different networks and not in terms of like social media networking, blah, blah, all those things. We are plugged in as a piece of the puzzle of the electrical board. And your local community is part of your environment. Your home is part of your environment. Your body is part of your environment. So to me, it's the moving from the microcosm into the macrocosm. And so it's not just, well, I'm LaDonna and I'm this and I'm that. I'm also a part of that Corpus Christi area, that
Yeah.
culture, that city, the town. And I think that's tricky for some people, especially if you aren't living in the hometown that you were born in. It's really interesting because I came to Corpus Christi as a transplant from Houston because of the military, and immediately we were like, well, you're going to be treated like an outsider. And it's, you hear that so often in military families. And I think we can kind of buy into that and use that as an excuse, just like we use responsibility. And well, if I'm just born with this disease state, we'll also use that in a community context as an excuse not to get plugged in. I know for me, I use busyness as an excuse not to get plugged in, instead of saying I've been really disappointed by some things and some engagements and some stuff like that. That feels too vulnerable to say, so
Right.
it's easier to say, well, I'm just really busy. And that's true, and I think it's intelligent to really look at where you want to engage, because not every situation, not every opportunity is for you. And being able to say, that one just isn't resonating right for me right now. I think that's really cool that they're doing that, but that's just not where I'm being called right now. It's okay to say that.
Mhm.
Now, if you're running your mouth about it, that's a different thing.
Yeah.
That's not putting positive into your body or into the environment that you're in. But I think wisdom is recognizing, okay, here's where I'm good, here's where I'm not good, and recognizing, me naturally being a little bit more introverted. Community's kind of tricky for me, just because of experience and time limits and things like that.
No, that's understandable. And you made some great points as far as establishing your sense of community and how you see it, because everyone has a different perspective. And
Mhm.
that's what it's all about, having a sense of understanding from different people's perspectives. That way we can
Right.
experience the open minded factor within that. But
Yeah.
overall, LaDonna, we're going to go into a little transition I like to call either or, as far as which one you would pick out of either or.
Sure.
My first one is this: what would you choose out of loyalty or respect?
Loyalty.
Would you rather live in space or live in the ocean?
Ooh, I don't like water a whole lot. I'm working on that. I'm taking swim classes. I'm going to say the ocean. I'm at least a little bit more familiar with that.
Gotcha, got you. Would you rather be famous and poor or anonymous and rich?
Famous and poor.
Would you rather would you rather, for instance, eat unlimited free meals at your favorite restaurant or have unlimited first class tickets?
One sounds more practical than the other, but I do like movement. I think you get it. And this is where like my husband will say it's never a yes or no question for me. I always have details and like, well, because of this, I think you would be able to, with travel, you'd be able to see so many different types of food and so
Right,
many different things. So I'd
right.
like the variety, I think.
No, without a doubt. Now, picture this scenario, LaDonna. You're on an island, right? And you're trapped on this island, but you have the option to listen to five of your favorite music artists, their whole entire catalog. It doesn't matter what genre of music it is. Who would those five music artists be?
Oh man, that's the hardest thing you've asked me. I have wildly varying musical taste and it changes frequently based on my mood. And I'm a water sign, so that changes a lot.
Yeah.
Um, my husband jokes that he said that I have two different genres. It's either seance or ghetto. And my answer was, oh my gosh, we can channel Tupac. And he did not mind me hearing that. Um, I love blues. That's part of how I seduced my husband. We would play blues music whenever we play cards.
Okay.
I like a lot of Texas country,
Okay.
and I do like classical. I like a lot of like it surprises people because I like 90s rap. I love that. I grew up in Houston in middle school and high school, so I think that influenced me. And like Viking music, like there's just something like genetic that I love about that. So it would be a wildly you'd think you were flying over a different island every other day. So
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a different variety in music, without a
Mhm.
doubt. What would be your favorite go-to meal, LaDonna?
Oh, I would probably say hamburgers. It just that's what I grew up on. I have so many fond memories tied to barbecues and 4th of July things with cousins and stuff like I would say hamburgers probably my thing. I know the answer is supposed to be salads, but it's not.
It's all good. We all have a favorite food that we love, even if it's a cheat day meal. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. Balance,
We deserve
balance.
to pleasure ourselves every now and then, as long as it doesn't turn into a habit, like we've been talking
Yeah,
about this whole particular episode. Now, you
exactly.
mentioned the traveling aspect just a bit ago, LaDonna.
Mhm.
Where's the favorite place? Where's your favorite place, I should say, that you have traveled to thus far? And where's a place you would like to travel to that you haven't been to yet?
Um, I I love trees. I tell my husband all the time when we're talking about where we want to buy land, just find me trees. And mesquite bushes do not count. That is not the same thing. Um, I love the Austin area without the traffic. I
Mm,
love like Wimberley kind of hill country area. That is my favorite. We love camping out in those areas.
okay, okay,
If I were to travel, one of my best friends just bought some land in Tennessee and it is
okay.
gorgeous. She has rivers and waterfalls in her literally in her backyard. So I think that's probably the next place I really want to travel and see and just see I would love to travel internationally, but part of it is like I'm more comfortable here, and I haven't seen enough of this country. We traveled with our church quite a bit when I was younger, so I've seen some
Yeah.
really interesting places. But there's so much, and especially with my husband, there's so many things I want to re-experience, but with him this time. So I would say
Mm.
that's probably it.
As long as we get to be in tune with Mother Earth, that's all that I care about. Regardless, just give me some trees, and
Yep.
give me some nice land, some nice rivers. Hear the birds singing, nice little
Yes.
sunrise, sunset. I'm happy wherever we go. That's for
Yep.
sure. Now, I understand, LaDonna, that you're super, super busy, super, super productive all at the same time. But when you're not doing all the things that you're doing within your work on a regular basis, what are some of your favorite hobbies you like to do that many people may not know you like to do?
I love sewing. Anything with a needle or anything with
Hmm.
thread is my jam. I have a spinning wheel. I can do bob and lace. I like to sew. I made my own wedding dress. Like I've
Oh,
sewn since I
wow.
was like 5 years old. So I really like that. And I joke that it doesn't matter to me if it's skin or if it's fabric. Like I'm good. That's my zone. So and I mean, I did plastic surgery for a while, so,
Mhm.
there are quite a few C-section scars walking around ready to high five me in HEB, so, um,
Got you. Got you.
but yeah, I really like that because it's rhythmic and it keeps my hands busy, so my brain will slow down a little bit, so I can't watch a movie. Both of my family members here are movie buffs, and I can tell you the lines from a movie, but I can't tell you what happened on the screen because I'm sewing the whole time or I'll fall asleep. I just can't.
Mm, that's good to know. Good to know. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that too. I remember my grandma actually used to sew a lot growing up, and I would always look at her while she's sewing, and I'm thinking like, why is she always in such a state of mind while she's sewing? And then
Yeah,
now, as I get older, I'm like, oh, that's what brought her peace. That's what brought her
right.
like a sense of comfort. And hearing you describe how you love sewing, it kind of reminds me a little bit of how my grandma used to be
Yeah,
whenever she
yeah,
was sewing. So I
yeah,
understand that. I get it
right.
now completely.
I've even added a lot of like there's something I'm working on that's there's a particular stitch pattern that's very rhythmic. So I've started working box breathing into that. So with this stitch it's in and then
Mhm.
you hold for the next stitch and then on the next one it's out and using that as more of a it calms me down and it helps with my anxiety, but to add another layer to that and another component so that my physical body is feeling that too is a
Mhm.
good way to do it. So I've figured out how to multitask on that.
Multitasking is a major key, without a doubt. That's how you continue to
Mm,
remain productive. I have
right.
one last question for you,
Sure.
Ladonna, as we wrap everything up. If you had the opportunity to go back in time and talk to yourself, say 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself? And based on the current journey that you're on, your
Mhm.
trajectory path, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Let's see, so 10 years ago, I was 30. I was heading slowly and surely for a divorce at that time, and I was very concerned. And it wasn't oh my gosh, this is a miserable marriage. I'm so abused, anything like that. It was a marriage of just friends, roommates,
Mhm.
kind of a thing. And I remember part of me not being willing to say that I was nervous about what life was about to look like. If I could go back and say, you have no idea what's coming your way. Your life is going to be 10 times better than you could ever hope for it to be. Your life is going to make those movies look ridiculous. That is accurate, that is real, that that is in store for you. That's what God has chosen for you and appointed for you. And you just hang on because there was so much doubt in there and I drug things out and decisions in my career, in my personal life, in my relationships, in all the things. There were so many things that I was like just kind of dragging my feet and riding the brakes on because I wasn't sure what was coming. So if I
Mhm.
took that same message and applied it to today, which I haven't done, so thank you for triggering that thought there, where I'm going to be in 10 years is 10 times better than where I think I'm going to be and what I'm trying to plan for today. My husband and I have a Friday morning date every week, and we had so many conversations this morning about okay, so if you add this, what are you going to take? Okay, so where are we going to adjust this? What is that? If we move this, what does that do? And we are doing the footwork right now for where I'm going to feel just completely blessed out of my mind in 10 years.
I
So
love it.
that gives a sense of peace in it. My brother we were discussing the parable of the soils recently, and I was understanding it completely different than all of the hundreds of times I've read that parable before in my life. And he was talking about how the weeds are actually a good sign that the soil is good and that things are growing, but the weeds they're all the little things that have to be done. It's all the phone calls, the messages, the emails, all the stuff. And I said, "That's where I'm at." I said, "I am being blessed out of my mind, and it is running me out of my mind right now." Like, I've got to be able to say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, that's a weed. That's not a plant. I need to focus on the plant because the plants are getting crowded out right now." And to be able to say that in a literal context and an emotional context with my job the way it is, it's okay. So let's make sure that we're tending the plants on that.
I love that. And if anyone has learned anything from this particular episode of the HFWB podcast series, it's simple. The future starts now. So if you make the necessary changes right here, right now, which is everything that you need, whether it's next year, couple of years, 5 to 10 years, or even longer than that down the road, you'd be surprised on how much of a difference on how you'll feel better, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. It starts right here, right now. It's everything that you need. If you haven't gotten that message from myself, if you haven't gotten that message from Ladonna from this episode, that's what we want you to understand. Right here, right now, is everything that you need to make a difference and to make those necessary improvements to better your overall lifestyle habits. Donna, I appreciated this conversation that we had. It was well needed. A lot of information, a lot of resources thrown on into this overall particular episode. How can people get in touch with you as far as just following your overall journey? How can people get in touch with your practice? How can people get in touch with your business? This is your time to let people know what you have to offer.
Right. So our website is the Lamp and Leaf Holistic. Well, let me take that back. Our company name is the Lamp and Leaf Holistic. Our website is lampleafholistic.com. Our office is here in Corpus Christi. We have an office in Rockport, but we do work virtually as well. So we're not limited to just people in these local areas. Our social media profiles are probably where we're most active. I am much more frequently on Instagram than I am Facebook, but we can be found on Facebook at Dr. Ladonna Rocha Naturopath. And then on Instagram, it's the Lamp and Leaf Holistic. So we're pretty easy to find. We share a lot of information. Education is a really big deal to me. So being able to offer like the masterclass series that we have coming up in Rockport next weekend. There's just a lot of different events. Even with our apothecary, we'll be in Houston at the end of this month, really kind of spreading out some availability there and getting more plugged into those communities. So
plugging into different communities, staying on the go, remaining busy, remaining productive. We're bridging the gap between, of course, conventional medicine, natural health modalities. We're balancing out the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We're doing all that. And that's what really it's all about. And that's what we're trying to get across more than ever in this particular episode. And with that being said, Ladonna, I just thank you so much for just taking time out of your busy schedule to simply bless us with an appearance on the HFWB podcast series. I've learned a lot and I enjoyed it tremendously even more.
Well, I appreciate it too. Thank you so much for having me, and really enjoyed a lot of the conversations and things for me to think about too. So it goes both ways.
No, of course. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody for listening to this particular episode of the HFWB podcast series that is, of course, being sponsored by GoFeelGreat.com, where we'll help you feel great for the long haul. With that being said, it's yours truly, Clifton Pope, with the HFWB podcast series, encouraging y'all to stay healthy, wealthy, and blessed like always. And until next time, peace, love, and positive vibrations.